Hey guys, tonight we set sail on the shakiest, weirdest voyage since that one time you tried assembling IKEA furniture without the instructions. You'll meet a strange man on a sun-bleached beach who claims to be nobody in particular. Just a wanderer, he says, sipping something red from a clay cup. The ocean's quiet, the sand is warm, and seagulls are making their usual racket. It feels like a normal, lazy afternoon, until a group of pirates shows up and ruins everything. You're going to watch what happens when ordinary people try to mess with a god. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking along the Aegean coast, the waves teasing your ankles like overexcited puppies. The sun's just low enough to paint the world in soft gold. Your sandals are dusty, your shoulders smell faintly of time and sweat, and your coin purse is exactly one fig away from being empty. That's when you see him. He's sitting on a rock, tilted back as though the stone were a recliner built just for him. Curly hair, the color of dark grapes, falls around his sun-kissed face. His robe slipping off one shoulder, and his expression is somewhere between just woke up and been drunk since last Thursday. In his hand, he's lazily swirling a goblet of wine that doesn't appear to have a bottom. He winks at you, but not in a creepy way, in that, I know something you don't, way that makes your spine want to sit up straighter. You hesitate naturally because people who sit on rocks in the middle of nowhere, dressed like they just wandered off a theater stage, usually have stories. He gestures you closer without saying a word. You ask, tentatively, "You all right?" He grins. "Better than all right. Care for a drink?" You decline because 1, you're not sure if it's wine or fermented beet juice, and 2, this man might be one unpaid debt away from throwing that cup at a seagull. You ask for his name. He blinks slowly, as if that's a very complicated question, then finally shrugs. "Let's say Dion. Easier for you to remember." And look, technically you've heard of a Dionysus before. God of wine, madness, parties, and spontaneous musical numbers. But that was a myth, right? You laugh nervously and sit nearby. He tells you about wandering the world, bringing joy and confusion wherever he goes. You nod politely, but also keep a wary eye on the amphora that keeps refilling itself. Then you hear them, oars slapping water. A ship's prow splits the waves like a sharp knife through a melon. Pirates. Now, these aren't the cool kind of pirates with eye patches and parrots. These guys look like the type who would steal fruit from market stalls and argue over who gets the cleanest loincloth. Scruffy, loud, and definitely drunk before noon. You watch them spot Dion and grin like they've just found a chest of gold. They shout from the deck, waving their arms. Dion doesn't wave back. You feel your pulse thrum in your ears as they drop anchor and wade ashore. Their leader, a burly guy with a nose like a squashed fig and a voice like gravel in a pot, points at Dion. "That him." One pirate nods. "Yup. Rich robe. Fancy cup. Probably some noble's son. Ransom time." You try to interrupt. He's not what you think, but they're already grabbing Dion's arms. He doesn't resist. In fact, he sips his wine mid-kidnapping. You've never seen anyone look so bored while being abducted. They drag him toward the boat. You stand there, stunned. Then Dion turns back over his shoulder and casually says, "Come along if you like. Could be fun." And that's the exact moment you realize you're either about to witness something divine, or die in the stupidest way imaginable. You step onto the pirate ship. The moment your foot hits the deck, there's a smell. Not of sea salt or old wood, but of honeyed wine and crushed mint. A scent that doesn't belong here. The pirates don't seem to notice. Dionysus sits cross-legged near the mast, smiling like a cat that just swallowed a harp. The ship creaks as it pulls away from shore. The crew's already talking about which noble house might pay the most for their guest. Someone jokes about cutting off Dion's ear as proof of capture. Another suggests pulling out his teeth. It's all very wholesome. You edge closer to Dion. He whispers, "You'd think people would stop trying to kidnap gods. But here we are." You ask him flat out, "Are you really that Dionysus?" He nods. Sort of. Depends on who's asking. Some say I'm just the spirit of wine. Others think I'm a shape-shifting wanderer who makes vines grow on people's hats. Historians still argue whether I was once a mortal prince before being deified. He takes another sip. You glance up at the sails, flapping lazily in the wind. The crew starts singing, badly, and one of them is already playing dice with himself, which is concerning. That's when you notice the first vine. It's curling up from a crack in the deck, green and tender, like a newborn snake. No one else sees it. Or, more likely, they refuse to see it. The vine snakes toward a barrel, blooms a cluster of grapes in seconds, and then just keeps going. You nudge Dion. He looks amused. Told you it'd be fun. You swallow hard. The ship creaks louder, and the sunlight seems to bend ever so slightly. There's laughter now, but not human laughter. It's lighter, almost musical. You realize you're the only one even remotely concerned, which is exactly how he likes it. Dionysus leans back against the mast, tips his goblet toward you, and grins again. Welcome aboard. The pirates are celebrating, and not in a "we just landed treasure" kind of way, but more like, "We think we're about to win the lottery by ransoming this sleepy, wine-sipping stranger." You stand awkwardly near a barrel that smells strongly of salted fish, trying to ignore the creeping vine now lazily wrapping around the mast. It pulses faintly, like it has a heartbeat. Dion, still just lounging like a guy on vacation, winks at you as the ship sways underfoot. You try to speak up again. "Hey, maybe you should really ask who he is. Or what he is." But the pirates are too busy arguing about who gets the biggest share. One of them suggests cutting Dion's robe into pieces and selling them as relics. Another snorts. This guy, he's just a spoiled noble's brat, drunk on cheap wine. The wine god doesn't respond. He just raises his goblet and downs the rest with a lazy chuckle. There's a superstition among sailors, one that says never kidnap anyone who's smiling while being tied up, especially if their hands aren't actually tied. But pirates aren't exactly known for their cautious decision-making. You watch as the crew begins to really settle into their mistake. They lock Dion below deck like that'll help anything. He doesn't resist, doesn't shout. He just hums a little tune as they shove him into the cargo hold. Above deck, the air feels heavier. The wind shifts. The sails, full just moments ago, droop like overcooked lettuce. One of the younger pirates blames it on a passing cloud. Another spits overboard and mutters something about bad luck, a historical fact you'd maybe find in the writings of Herodotus. Many ancient Greek sailors believed that gods often disguised themselves as beggars, strangers, or travelers to test mortal kindness. Fail the test, and boom, you're cursed, transformed, or dramatically thrown into the sea by a talking fish. But these pirates, they've never read Herodotus. Below deck, Dionysus leans back against a wine barrel that smells too sweet. His fingers tap lightly on the wood, and from within the darkness, something shifts. It's subtle at first. The wood creaks more than usual. You hear faint sloshing, even though no one's pouring anything. The ship rocks harder, but there's no wind. Then there's a sound like uncorking. One of the pirates heads below deck to check on their captive. He doesn't come back up. Another follows, more annoyed than worried. Probably drunk himself unconscious, he grumbles. 5 minutes later, a third pirate opens the hatch, peeks inside, and lets out a strangled yelp. You lean over just in time to see him slam the hatch shut, eyes wide. There's vines, he pants. Everywhere. The crew laughs it off, at first. But you, standing near the helm, feel the first drop of wine splatter your sandal. Not seawater. It trickles along the deck, sticky and dark red. The vines now visibly stretch up the mainmast like they're racing each other. Clusters of grapes dangle from the rigging. One bursts open with a little pop. No one's laughing now. The captain, big guy with arms like tree trunks, barks orders to dump the barrels overboard, thinking maybe Dion slipped something into them. They open one. It's empty. The second, also dry. Third, overflowing. Not with wine. No, this one's got dirt and roots in it, like a planter box that grew overnight. One pirate pokes at it and gets smacked by a vine. He falls backward, screaming. Not hurt, just startled, but that's enough. Now panic begins to ripple through the crew. One pirate grabs his sword and swings at a creeping vine on the rail. It splits, leaks more wine, and instantly regrows. Another tries to climb the rigging, but it's now completely wrapped in ivy. You look around. The ship doesn't resemble a ship anymore. It's turning into a floating garden, like someone threw a vineyard and a jungle into a blender. That's when the singing starts again. Only this time, it's not human. The sound is eerie, harmonious, ancient, like dryads performing a sea shanty. The vines twist in rhythm with it. A few pirates fall to their knees, trying to pray, but forget which god they worship. Where is he? The captain roars, storming below deck. He doesn't come back up either. The hatch bursts open again, on its own this time, and out steps Dionysus. He's barefoot. His robes are completely clean, despite the chaos. And now he's wearing a crown of ivy and grapes, like someone dared him to dress up as his own myth. "Boo," he says cheerfully. Every pirate on deck freezes. He walks calmly across the wine-slick wood, the vines parting for his feet. You don't even move. You're not sure you can. Then he stretches. Big, cat-like yawn. Arms overhead. As if he just woke up from a nap in the middle of a literal vine invasion. "I really hate being tied up," he says softly. One pirate tries to draw a dagger. Dionysus snaps his fingers. The dagger melts. Not burns. Melts. Like it was made of chocolate left in the sun. Another pirate shrieks and jumps overboard. The others stare at him like he's crazy, until they notice the lion. Yes. A lion. A full-grown, very real, and very unamused lion now stands where Dionysus had just been. Golden mane rippling in the salty breeze, teeth like polished daggers, and eyes that say, "Go ahead, try something." Historians still argue whether this moment in the myth, where Dionysus transforms on the ship, is metaphor or magic. Some say the lion was symbolic of royal power, or inner wildness. Others think the Greeks just like tossing surprise animals into their stories like ancient plot twists. You, however, are not in the mood for symbolism. The lion roars. 3 more pirates scream and fling themselves into the sea without hesitation. You don't blame them. One trips over a grapevine and cartwheels into the water face first. Meanwhile, the lion calmly pads across the deck, tail flicking with bored elegance. Its eyes find each pirate in turn, like it's doing roll call. You try to breathe quietly, hoping divine lions can't hear heartbeats. Then, just as suddenly as he arrived, the lion vanishes. No puff of smoke. Just gone. And Dionysus is back, grinning like someone who just pulled off the greatest prank of all time. "Now," he says, "shall we continue?" The remaining pirates don't wait for clarification. They hurl themselves into the sea, weapons and all. One even dives with his boots still on. Dionysus leans against the mast and watches them bob in the water. And then, something weird starts to happen. Weirder than the jungle deck. Weirder than wine from nowhere. Weirder than a disappearing lion. You squint at the splashing forms in the water. Because the pirates aren't swimming anymore. They're changing. At first, you think your eyes are playing tricks on you. Maybe the sea spray's messing with your vision. Or maybe the stress of sailing with a wine-soaked god has finally fried your brain like a fish on a hot rock. But no, you're seeing it right. The pirates in the water are changing. One by one, their arms shrink. Their legs blur together. Their shouts turn into high-pitched squeals, like flutes played underwater. Tattoos fade. Hair vanishes. Skin smooths into glistening gray. Are they turning into fish? You ask, backing away from the rail. Dionysus doesn't look up. He's peeling a fig with one perfect thumbnail. Not fish. Dolphins. It's more flattering. And sure enough, the former pirates begin to leap and spin, their sleek new bodies slicing through the waves like they were born for it. You spot one of them, the loudest of the bunch earlier, doing an awkward somersault. His dolphin face looks deeply confused. If a dolphin could look offended, he would. The whole pod bobs around the ship, clicking and squeaking at each other like they're trying to vote someone off the reef. You blink at Dionysus. Why dolphins? He shrugs. Playful. Loud. Slightly annoying. I figured it was poetic. You pause. You turned people into dolphins. For being annoying. They also kidnapped a god, he adds, biting into the fig. Okay, fair. A quick history sidebar while you stare at the cursed dolphin crew. In classical art and pottery, Dionysus is often shown riding a dolphin or surrounded by them. One famous version of this myth is told by the poet Homer, yes, that Homer, where Dionysus punishes Tyrrhenian pirates by transforming them into dolphins, forever doomed to help lost sailors and look cuter than they deserve. But the details shift across versions. Some say the pirates willingly disrespected him. Others claim they just didn't recognize him. Historians still argue whether this was a morality tale about respecting the gods or just a convenient excuse to explain why dolphins like humans so much. Back in the present, you lean over the ship's side. The dolphins circle, confused and agitated. One tries to slap the hull with its tail. Another attempts to shout but just squeaks louder. You're half worried they'll evolve legs again out of sheer frustration. Can they ever change back? You ask. Dionysus squints into the sun. I mean, probably not, unless they learn humility, or find a sea witch, or invent poetry. You never know. You watch as the dolphins begin to settle, slowly accepting their new flipper-based reality. They stop splashing and begin to follow the ship, swimming in an accidental V formation. One of them flips playfully. It's the guy with the nose like a squashed figure. He seems to be embracing the dolphin life. I think that one's already happier than he was as a pirate, you murmur. Dionysus beams. Exactly. The wind picks up, and the ship lurches forward as if deciding, well, that happened, and moving on. You're left standing on deck with a literal god, surrounded by a floating vineyard, chased by your newly aquatic friends. It should feel terrifying, but it doesn't. Instead, there's a strange peace to it. The sea is calmer now. The ship's creaks have turned into a lazy groan, like it's sighing contentedly. Seagulls fly in a perfect circle above the mast, casting brief shadows like lazy sundials. Dionysus flops down near the helm. Well, that was fun. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. You sit beside him, cautiously avoiding a grapevine that's now grown a single, suspiciously perfect peach. So what now? You ask. He stretches. Now we find the others. The others. My entourage. My fan club. My emotionally unstable party crew. He winks. The Maenads. You've heard the stories. Maenads, those wild, frenzied women who worship Dionysus by dancing barefoot through forests, drinking wine, tearing things apart, and generally making Renaissance paintings uncomfortable. Depending on the storyteller, they're either liberated feminists, chaos gremlins, or divine tools of ecstasy and destruction. Where are they? You ask, half dreading the answer. He stands, arms spread. Everywhere. But I know a spot. You start to ask more, but then he grabs the tiller with one hand and points dramatically with the other. Land ho! You squint at the horizon. There's nothing but blue. I don't see. Suddenly, land is there. No slow appearance. No gentle build-up. Just bam! Coastline. Forest. Rolling hills. Like the world clicked render all at once. You stagger. That wasn't there before. He winks. Divine shortcut. Perks of the job. As the ship glides toward the shore, you notice something strange. Vines are retracting. The grapes dry up in seconds. Leaves crinkle and vanish into dust. The deck sheds its jungle coat, plank by plank, until it looks like a regular ship again, just with a few stubborn patches of moss that refuse to go quietly. You step off onto soft sand, the dolphins clicking farewells behind you. One splashes water toward Dionysus in what might be a rude gesture. He bows dramatically in return. The beach feels untouched. The air smells like sage and sea foam. You hear distant drums, faint but pulsing. That's them, he says, already walking inland. Come on, bring your sandals, and maybe don't drink too much of anything I offer. You follow. Soon, the jungle gives way to an olive grove. Trees stretch overhead like lazy dancers, their twisted limbs draped in silver-green leaves. Sunlight filters through in gold beams. Cicadas hum. A breeze carries a note of something musky. Maybe wine, maybe incense, maybe danger. Dionysus strolls like he owns the place, which, let's be real, he kind of does. You ask cautiously, so, do you do this often? He laughs. What, turn pirates into dolphins? Only when I'm in a very specific mood. You're starting to realize something else. For a god of madness and chaos, Dionysus is surprisingly grounded, mischievous, sure, but not cruel. At least not unnecessarily. He's not Zeus-level petty. He doesn't seem to care about temples or sacrifices or golden statues. He just likes to shake things up. You finally reach a clearing. It's empty now, but you can feel it. Something about the air is charged, like the moment before a storm or the breath before a song. He inhales deeply. We're close. You glance back toward the beach. The ship bobs gently. The dolphins have vanished, probably chasing fish or doing somersaults in protest. You've crossed a line, metaphorically and literally. There's no going back to normal. And, surprisingly, you're okay with that. You're not entirely sure what you expected from a Dionysian forest party, but a magical olive grove with a faint bass line probably wasn't it. The beat, somewhere between a drum circle and the inside of a heartbeat, is getting louder. It comes from deeper in the woods, echoing off the trunks in a rhythm that's almost too perfect, like it's syncing with your pulse. Is this a party? You ask, brushing aside a fern that doesn't look entirely natural. It curls a little as you pass, like it's waving at you. Creepy, but also kind of polite. Dionysus hums in agreement. Not just a party. The party. You can't help but grin until you notice the ground. The soil is soft. Too soft. It's not mud, it's not sand. It's loam, rich and dark, and something's growing from it. Fast. Like, fast enough that you stop walking just in case the moss decides to claim your ankles. Little shoots pop up in your footprints, sprouting tiny leaves, grapes, and once, swear to Olympus, a baby pomegranate. You step a little more carefully after that. Don't worry, Dionysus says, already 10 paces ahead. The forest just likes to show off. The drumming intensifies. You start to hear laughter too, high-pitched, gleeful, and just slightly unhinged. There's also singing. Not in a language you know, but it loops through the trees like silk spun from wine fumes. And then, through a gap in the branches, you see them. Dozens of women dancing barefoot in a circle. Their hair is wild and tangled with ivy. Some wear flowing robes, others hardly anything at all. Tambourines jingle, flutes trill, and the forest seems to lean in, listening. A few of the dancers have painted symbols on their skin. Stars, moons, snakes, eyes. Some wear garlands that bloom with every spin. They don't stop. The rhythm is relentless, and their joy borders on mania. Maenads, Dionysus says, stepping into the clearing like a returning rock star. Miss me. The drumming halts. Every head turns. And just like that, the grove explodes in cheers. The Maenads rush him like team fans at a pop concert, wrapping him in hugs, laughter, and the occasional goat-shaped ornament. One shouts something that sounds like, "You left me in a tree last time." He just laughs and twirls her. You hang back, half in awe, half terrified. One of the Maenads peels off from the group and comes toward you. She's tall, with sharp eyes and a necklace made of fox teeth. You brace for either a hug or a bite. She stops in front of you, leans in close, and whispers, "You smell like old wine and confusion. You'll fit in." Then she hands you a goblet. It's full of something red and fragrant, fizzing slightly. Against your better judgment, you take a cautious sip. It's the best thing you've ever tasted. You can't even describe it. It tastes like memory, like a song you forgot you loved, like dancing under stars on a warm night. "Wow," you say, stunned. She smirks. That was the watered-down version. Dionysus, now draped in flower crowns and someone else's cloak, gestures for the drummers to resume. The music swells again. The Maenads twirl. And you, goblet in hand, sandals slightly loose, feel something shift inside you. A giddy lightness, like the rules you've always followed are suddenly optional. You're dancing. You didn't plan to, but your feet are moving. You're spinning in the clearing, laughing like an idiot, arms raised as if the stars themselves are clapping along. And it feels good. Maybe even too good. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a little voice whispers, "This is how people vanish for years without realizing it." But the rest of your mind is busy with tambourine beats and the smell of crushed thyme underfoot. A historical tidbit floats up from the haze. In the ancient world, Maenads were often considered both sacred and dangerous. They were said to be able to summon divine power, to tear animals apart with their bare hands, and to speak in tongues. Some cities welcomed their wild rites, others banned them outright. In fact, Roman authorities tried multiple times to suppress Dionysian cults for being too free. Freedom. That's the real drug here. And maybe madness too. The line between the two is blurry in this forest. You dance until your legs wobble, then collapse onto a mossy log next to a satyr. Yes, an actual satyr. Goat legs, tiny horns, and a very smug expression. He offers you a figure. You offer him your goblet. He toasts you without a word. Feeling it yet? Dionysus asks, suddenly beside you. You nod, slightly dizzy. What is this? He leans in. Ecstasy, communion, the end of reason, the beginning of something better. Okay, dramatic, but also kind of accurate. You look around. The forest pulses with life. Fireflies blink in time with the drums. A tree blooms mid-song and sheds its petals like confetti. One Maenad walks by holding hands with a goat. No one questions it. Does it always go like this? You ask. Dionysus shrugs. Sometimes we turn into trees. Sometimes the trees turn into us. Depends on the mood. You stare at him. He grins. Kidding. Mostly. Historians still argue whether Maenads were literal women or symbolic representations of emotional release. Some think they were priestesses. Others say they were just ordinary folk swept up in divine madness. But no one denies the power they held. This feeling of losing yourself in something bigger, weirder, and wilder than logic. You lie back on the moss and stare up at the stars peeking through the canopy. They look closer than usual. One of them winks at you. The music doesn't stop, not even as the trees start humming along. You're not sure how long you lie there, pressed into the moss like some sort of overly relaxed panini. Minutes, hours, possibly days? Time in a Dionysian forest doesn't really behave. It wobbles. It winks. It might have tripped and broken both its ankles a while ago. The music still thrums around you, less like sound now, more like atmosphere. The flutes have started echoing each other, answering calls only the Maenads seem to understand. Tambourines jingle in time with your heartbeat, and even the cicadas sound unusually coordinated, as if they joined the band without asking. Then, without warning, the music stops. No fade out, no last hurrah, just silence. A heavy, almost fizzy silence. You sit up, groggy, like you've been wrapped in velvet and grape juice. That's when you see it. Or, more accurately, him. In the center of the clearing stands a lion. Not just any lion, either. This one is practically glowing, muscles rippling beneath a golden pelt that could make statues weep from jealousy. His eyes are the color of old honey, and they are fixed on you. You say helpfully. The lion blinks. Then, with a movement so fluid it might as well be underwater ballet, he stretches. And stretches. And stretches. Until he's no longer a lion. Where the beast stood now stands Dionysus, wearing a loose violet robe and a grin that suggests he very much enjoyed that entrance. Too dramatic, he asks. You manage a nod-shake hybrid. Just lion. I like the classics, he says. Nothing wakes a crowd up like a little healthy terror. And indeed, the Maenads are wide-eyed and breathless, frozen mid-movement. One of them still holding a drum above her head like she forgot how arms work. Then, as if a spell lifts, the clearing erupts again. Cheers, laughter, wild applause. The party resets instantly. More frenzied now, more fevered. The beat picks up like it's been saving energy. Dionysus snaps his fingers and a new round of goblets appear in every hand, including yours. You take a cautious sip. It's different this time. Darker, richer. There's a spice in it that wasn't there before. Something smoky and ancient. It tastes like a secret. And then you spot it. Movement along the tree line. A figure steps out, then another. And another. They're animals. Sort of. A lynx with eyes like pearls. A peacock strutting through the underbrush. A snake that slithers through a tamborine's ring without touching its edges. But they're not behaving like animals. They move with purpose, poise, and they gather around Dionysus like old friends returning from distant corners of the world. One of them, a tiger, yes, an actual tiger, leans in to nuzzle his shoulder. He laughs and scratches it behind the ears like it's a house cat. You glance sideways. So, you're pets. He considers. More like party guests. Some of them were human once. Others just know a good time when they smell one. You scoot away from the snake, just in case. As Dionysus turns in place, he raises his arms and says a word you don't understand. Instantly, the forest responds. Trees sway. Leaves shimmer with reflected moonlight. A wind kicks up out of nowhere and scatters rose petals across the clearing, though no roses seem to be growing anywhere nearby. Then comes the sound. Deep, rhythmic, hooves. Something is coming. You and the others turn to watch as a chariot crashes through the underbrush, pulled not by horses but by panthers. Their eyes burn like coals, and their steps make no sound. The chariot itself is gold-veined wood, carved with grapevines and faces that seem to grin and shift when you're not looking. Dionysus climbs aboard like he's been waiting centuries for it. You don't even question where the chariot came from. That ship sailed. Literally. He turns back to you and holds out a hand. Coming. You hesitate. Where is it going? He shrugs. Who knows? That's the point. Somewhere deep in the rational part of your brain, a little voice screams that climbing into a tiger-drawn chariot with a shape-shifting god is a terrible idea. But another part of your brain, the part still buzzing from divine wine and forest music, says, you'll never get this chance again. So, you step up. The maenads cheer. Some leap into the trees and swing from vines that shouldn't support human weight. Others dance behind you, following the chariot like it's leading a parade that never had a route planned to begin with. As the wheels roll over moss and root, the forest opens. Not like it's being pushed aside, more like it wants you to pass. A path appears where there was none. Ferns bend in respect. Trees lean back politely. A squirrel bows. No, seriously, it bows. You lean over and whisper, "Where are we going?" Dionysus grins, eyes on the horizon. To find someone who needs a reminder. You frown. Reminder of what? That joy can be terrifying, he says softly, and that not all gods want to be worshipped. Some want to be felt. You sit back, stunned. It's a weird thing, being in the presence of someone who seems equally capable of giving you eternal bliss or transforming your shoes into spiders for fun. He's unpredictable, but not unkind. And that's somehow more unnerving. Up ahead, the trees part for a hill crowned with stone ruins. You glimpse statues, broken ones, covered in ivy. One has no head. Another has too many arms. A third is just a leg with grapes carved into it. The maenads race ahead and begin decorating the ruins with ribbons, flowers, and bottles that they definitely didn't carry. One maenad sets up a little altar using a basket of figs, a goblet, and a pineapple she found. Somewhere? As Dionysus steps off the chariot, he surveys the place with a fond smile. Old temple, you ask. Old me, he replies. They tried to worship the statue, forgot to listen to the music. You sit nearby, unsure whether to bow or clap. Dionysus walks slowly into the center of the ruins. He touches a column, and ivy creeps up it instantly. Vines bloom. The stone itself seems to exhale. Then he speaks, not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. To the pirates who became dolphins, may you leap often and regret occasionally. To the mortals who forget me, May your parties always end too soon. And to those who follow the rhythm, however foolish, you're the only ones who see clearly. No thunder, no lightning, just a soft breeze and the sound of wine dripping from a leaf. The Maenads fall silent, then begin to sing again. Not wild this time, gentle, haunting, a lullaby for gods and ghosts. And just like that, the ruins become a place of worship again, not through force or fear, but through presence, through feeling. And you, dusty, grape-stained, confused, and a little dizzy, are now part of it. You wake up with a fig in your hand and moss in your hair. Not ideal, but not the worst morning you've had either. The ruins are quiet now. The Maenads have disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a trail of glittering leaves and slightly tipsy birds. One owl keeps hooting a rhythm like it's trying to remember the beat from last night. You blink blearily at the crumbling column beside you. A vine wrapped around it gives a polite wiggle, like it's saying good morning. Dionysus, naturally, is already awake. He's sitting on what used to be a statue's torso, whittling a twig into something that might be a flute or might be a joke. He glances over and grins. "You're still here," he says. "That's either bravery or bad luck." You sit up slowly. "Do people usually leave?" "Not always by choice," he says, tossing the half-whittled stick aside. "Some vanish into dreams. Others wake up centuries later in a field. One guy turned into a tree, but he was fine with it. Said he needed the quiet." You stretch your arms, which ache in places you didn't know existed. Your knees pop like a mythological cereal. "Where are the others?" you ask. He shrugs. "Back in the forest. Back in their heads. Back in the world. The party doesn't last forever." You look around. The once glowing ruins seem dimmer now. The vines have relaxed. The magic hasn't left, but it's sleeping, like a campfire turned to embers. Then Dionysus says, "Ready for your next lesson?" You blink. "There's a next one?" He claps his hands. The sound echoes strangely, bouncing off the air like it hit something invisible. "Of course. That was just the warm-up. I'm nothing if not thorough." You're about to protest when the wind shifts. And with it comes a new smell. Less wine and crush time. More fish, salt, and something sharp like iron and bad decisions. You turn to the edge of the ruins and see it. Sails. A ship, larger than the last one, anchored just off the coast. Soldiers disembark. Not pirates. Soldiers. Robes neat. Helmets polished. Spears so shiny you could do your hair in them, if you weren't currently embracing forest chic. Dionysus stands. Perfect timing. Do they know who you are? He grins. They think they do. That doesn't sound promising. Wait, are they the lesson? You ask. Oh no, he says, eyes twinkling. You are. You freeze. Excuse me. He waves you toward the path. Go on. They're expecting someone. You consider running back into the woods, but somehow that feels worse. You look down at yourself. Your tunic is stained with something purple that might be grape juice or might be enchanted beetles. Your hair smells like basil, and your sandals are, when did one of them turn into a tiny bear? You kick it off. It squeaks and scampers into the bushes. Perfect. Still, you walk. Because at this point, resisting Dionysus feels like yelling at a thunderstorm to turn the volume down. You meet the soldiers halfway up the path. They part for you like you're carrying a plague. The leader, a man with eyebrows that could slice cheese, steps forward. You there. Where's the one they call Bacchus? You blink. He prefers Dionysus. The man scowls. We've been sent to escort him to the city. There are questions, rumors, accusations of trickery and madness.
Oh,
You say, nodding. That sounds very on brand for him. The man doesn't laugh. Are you one of his priests? You glance down at your grape-stained tunic. Sure. He grunts. Then lead us to him. You consider warning them. Really, you do. But then you remember the pirates turned dolphins, the forest that sings back, the maenads who can party reality out of shape. And you just say, follow me. When the soldiers reach the ruins, they form a loose circle around Dionysus, who is now reclining across the lap of a broken marble goddess, sipping something from a goblet shaped like a pineapple. The leader clears his throat. You've been summoned by the city elders to answer for your behavior. Dionysus tilts his head. Which behavior? The man frowns. The spreading of wine-fueled hysteria, the corrupting of women, the summoning of animals, the vine thing. Dionysus swirls his goblet. I've done worse. You will come with us, the man says, peacefully. The air shifts again. You notice the vines around the ruins lifting slightly, like they've just remembered they have teeth. The statue Dionysus lounges on shivers, just once. You try not to make eye contact with the dirt. It's twitching. Dionysus sighs. I'd really rather not. The man draws his sword. You don't have a choice. That's when the ground opens up. No cracking. No dramatic earthquake. Just a hole. Smooth. Clean. Like it's been waiting underfoot this whole time. Two soldiers fall in before anyone reacts. Their yelps echo, then vanish. The rest panic. Spears clatter to the ground. Shields are dropped. One soldier tries to climb a tree and gets slapped by a vine for his trouble. Dionysus stands, impossibly calm. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't yell. He just smiles. And as the vines rise, coiling, hissing, blooming, the soldiers collapse to their knees. You stand still, heart pounding. It's not fear exactly. It's awe. The kind that presses on your lungs and makes your knees wobbly. Dionysus approaches the leader, who's frozen mid-prayer. I won't go to your city, he says softly, but you may return with a message. The man nods frantically. Tell them, Dionysus continues, that joy is not a sin, that ecstasy is not madness, that I am not to be worshipped from a distance. The man nods faster, and tell them to loosen up a little. The soldier flees, sandals slapping, trailing behind a few who didn't faint or fall in. The ruins go still again. You exhale. That seemed gentle. Dionysus smirks. I'm feeling generous. You sit beside him on the stone. So, what's the next lesson? He leans back, hands behind his head. Next, we're going home. You frown. You have a home? Don't we all? He replies. Mine just happens to be a little complicated. And before you can protest, the forest begins to fade, like a dream pulling away. One blink. That's all it takes. One blink, and the forest, the ruins, even the awkwardly panicked soldiers are gone. No vines, no moss, no slightly judgmental squirrels. Just marble. Endless, shining marble beneath your feet, cold as the belly of a forgotten god. You're standing in a vast hall. Columns stretch higher than mountains. The ceiling curves like the inside of a pearl, glowing faintly with shifting colors. Pink, lavender, gold. Somewhere above, a sun you can't see casts light without warmth. The air is dry, ancient, and buzzing softly, like it's trying to hum a hymn you should recognize. And in the center of it all is Dionysus. No longer playful, no figs, no jokes. He wears a robe of purple so deep it looks like night soaked in velvet. His hair is tied back with a golden band, and his face, still youthful, still mischievous, now has something behind the eyes. A weight. Like he remembers everything and laughs anyway. "Welcome," he says, "to home." You glance around. Olympus. He nods. Sort of. Not the tourist version. This is the real deal. The part the myths skip. The part mortals can't usually handle. And you get it now. This isn't the Dionysus of silly parties and dolphin transformation vengeance. This is the god who broke death, who came back, who tore himself apart and remade his name from the scraps. You swallow. Why bring me here? Because you've seen the madness, he says. Now it's time to see the meaning. He starts walking, and you follow, your sandals clacking on the marble like drumbeats. Each echo sounds slightly off, like it's not quite your footsteps. As you move, you notice strange things. A pool of wine that reflects the stars, even though the ceiling blocks the sky. A statue of Dionysus, except it's made entirely of vines, and its eyes are weeping honey. A throne carved from pine cones, grapes, and antlers, which is somehow more intimidating than a mountain of skulls. Then, a hall of tapestries, each one huge, each woven with shimmering thread that flickers between images. One shows a woman tearing a stag apart with her bare hands. Another shows a city crumbling as ivy bursts from its streets. A third shows a man, dressed like a king, wandering blind through the mountains, chased by shadows. Dionysus stops beside that last one. "Pentheus," he says. You nod slowly. "That's the king who mocked you. He tried to ban worship of me. Said I was just a foreign influence. Said joy made people weak. And you turned him into a woman and got him torn apart by his own mother." He raises an eyebrow. "Allegedly." You glance at the tapestry. The threads shift. One moment the figure is Pentheus, proud and furious. The next, he's confused, his robes tangled, eyes wide as the maenads close in. Historians still argue whether the story's literal, you say softly, or symbolic. Dionysus smiles. "Is there a difference?" That hangs in the air for a moment. You move to the next tapestry. This one shows Dionysus descending into the underworld, a crown of vines on his head, holding a torch made of golden ivy. Beside him is a figure, small, dim, fading. "Your mother," you whisper. He nods. "Semele, mortal, burned by Zeus' true form. I brought her back. A little dramatic, I'll admit. But the family reunions are nicer now." This story, the resurrection of Semele, isn't as well known. But it's important. Dionysus is one of the only gods said to go to the land of the dead and return with someone else. He defies not just death, but the rules of death. Just because you look up at him, you're not like the other gods. He smiles faintly. "No, I'm not. I never was." He waves a hand, and the tapestry vanishes into mist. Suddenly, you're standing at a balcony. Below, a city sprawls. Not Athens, not Rome, but something older. It pulses with life. People dancing, arguing, making wine, making mistakes. Statues toppled by ivy. Temples built halfway and abandoned for festivals. Children drawing mazes in the dust. Old women cackling over figs. "This is what I protect," Dionysus says. "Not law. not war, not purity. This chaos, you ask. He shakes his head. Life. Messy, unfiltered, imperfect joy. The kind that makes people dance even when they're grieving. The kind that turns pirates into dolphins because they forgot to laugh. You let that sink in. Then you ask, so what happens to the people who don't want that? The cities that try to lock it all down. He looks out over the balcony. They fall, he says simply. Eventually. Maybe not today. Maybe not in your lifetime. But joy doesn't stay buried. You can cork a bottle, but it still ferments. You chuckle. That sounds like a threat and a wine metaphor. He smirks. That's my whole brand. You're silent for a while. Then cautiously you say, why me? He looks at you fully for the first time since arriving here. Because you were willing to follow, to question, to dance even when you were afraid. He leans closer. And because you haven't asked for a gift. You blink. A gift. Most mortals do, he says. Power, immortality, a better singing voice. You haven't. That makes you dangerous in a way I like. You shift uncomfortably. What would you have given me? He taps your forehead gently. And suddenly, not everything. Just a flicker. The sound of grapes growing. The taste of lightning. The laughter of a god who sees through you. Then it's gone. You gasp. He grins. See, a gift without a price. You'll forget most of it. But not all. You turn to the balcony again, and the city below is fading, like a mirage at the edge of sleep. You're sending me back, aren't you? You ask. He nods. It's time. You hesitate. Will I remember? Enough, he says. Too much, and you'd go mad. Too little, and you'd become a soldier. You step back from the balcony. One last question. He gestures. Ask away. What are you, really? He laughs. I'm the crack in the mask. The dance in the silence. The wine that makes kings weep and fools wise. And just before the marble melts into shadows, I'm the god you need when the world stops making sense. And you fall. Backwards. Through stars and vines and laughter. Back to the place where the story started. You land with a thud. Soft, thankfully, like falling onto a pile of laundry that smells faintly of time and confusion. You blink up at the sky. Real sky this time. Blue, with just enough clouds to make you suspect someone arranged them for aesthetic balance. Bird song. Breeze. And somewhere nearby, the distant babble of a marketplace. You sit up slowly, your back on solid earth. Not Olympus, not the party forest, just somewhere. A dusty road stretches out ahead of you, lined with olive trees and the occasional disinterested goat. Behind you, a ridge rises where the forest might have been, but it's quiet now. No music, no vines twitching with ambition. And no Dionysus. You half expect him to pop out from behind a tree with jazz hands. Instead, someone else appears. An old woman, hunched over and leaning on a staff carved from what looks suspiciously like grapevine wood. She eyes you like she's seen this kind of thing before. And honestly, she probably has. You've been with him, she says, not unkindly. You blink. How did you? She taps her nose. You smell like wine and riddles. Fair. She beckons you toward a small cottage nearby, smoke curling from its chimney and the faint scent of roasting figs drifting through the air. Your stomach growls in betrayal. Inside, It's cozy in the way only places with too many herbs hanging from the rafters can be. She motions to a stool. You sit. She pours you a drink. It's not wine. It's better. Warm, sweet, and calming. Like tea brewed with moonlight and a hug. He always chooses the strange ones, she says, stirring a pot with a spoon made from horn. You raise an eyebrow. Strange how? Curious, she replies, resistant to the usual forms of fear. You didn't run when the vines whispered. You didn't beg when the ground opened. And, she adds, you didn't ask to be turned into a dolphin. That's a thing, you ask. She nods. More than once. You sip quietly, watching her. On one shelf, a mask rests, a theatrical one, grinning on one side, weeping on the other. On another, a jar marked tragedy salt sits next to one labeled comedy pepper. You're in the home of someone who's very familiar with Dionysus. You knew him, you ask. Oh, once, she says. I was a follower in the old days. Menad, technically. I danced, sang, once spent 6 days as a tree. Wait, actually a tree? She chuckles. Not the worst way to spend a week. You look down at your hands. Still human. Still your hands. Why does he do it? You ask her. The madness, the drama, the dolphins. Her eyes narrow slightly, because people forget. They forget that joy is sacred, that letting go is as holy as holding on, that not every god wants to be worshipped in temples made of stone. Some want laughter, dancing, falling apart a little. You nod slowly. It's beginning to settle in. She leans forward. Let me guess, he showed you the tapestry room? You stare. You've been there. Once, she says softly. Before I came back. Like you did. You sit with that for a moment. Then she reaches beneath her robe and pulls out something wrapped in cloth. She sets it on the table and unwraps it carefully. It's a small mask. Plain. Just eye holes and a faint smile. He leaves a piece, she says. For everyone. You touch it. It's light. Feels like cool wind and stage lights and the moment before music starts. What am I supposed to do with it? She shrugs. Whatever you like. Wear it. Burn it. Bury it. Or carry it with you. Some people become performers. Others become wanderers. Some start small cults with surprisingly good music. You smirk. And you. I make soup, she says. People show up, I feed them. Sometimes they leave different than they arrived. Sometimes they stay. You look at her home again. The masks, the herbs, the worn rugs. There's a strange kind of holiness here. Subtle, fermented, like wine left to breathe. You finish your drink and stand. She doesn't stop you. She just nods toward the road. Where does it go? You ask. Wherever people still sing, she says. Wherever someone's trying to remember how to feel. You pocket the mask and step outside. The road ahead is warm underfoot. You pass through the market, where people shout and laugh, children chase each other with reeds, and a flute player stumbles through a tune with more enthusiasm than skill. Someone offers you a date. You take it. It's sweet and sticky and perfect. You smile. Later, in a quieter part of town, you hear it. A voice. Distant, but unmistakable. Hey. You turn, and there's Dionysus again. Except maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just someone who looks like him. Maybe it's the wine merchant with a twinkle in his eye. Maybe it's the theater kid reenacting a myth under the moonlight. Maybe it's no one at all. But you hear him just once more. Don't get boring. And then he's gone. Just a breeze that smells faintly of rosemary and rebellion. And you keep walking. And in your pocket, the mask begins to hum. The humming doesn't stop. You try ignoring it, tucking the mask deeper into your satchel, wrapping it in a scarf, even stuffing it between two oranges. No use. It hums not with sound, but with intention, like a secret begging to be remembered, or a phone set to eternal vibrate. Eventually, you take it out. It's unchanged, still white, still smiling faintly, still so lightweight you keep forgetting you're holding anything at all. But now, it feels warmer, as if it's attuned to something ahead of you, something calling it, or you, forward. So, you walk. The city thins behind you. Roads fray into pathways. Houses give way to groves, groves to hills, hills to silence. Soon it's just you, the sky, and the mask. And then you hear it. Faint, soft. Not music this time, but crying? You pause near a rocky outcrop. A little shrine sits here, weather-worn and half-collapsed, a clay figure of some nameless goddess resting amid wildflowers. And on the ground beside it, hunched and shivering, is a boy. You kneel. Hey, are you all right? He startles, tries to hide his face. Leave me alone. You stay quiet. After a moment, he peeks at you. His cheeks are streaked, his tunic is torn, and one sandal is missing. Classic tragic figure stuff. You're about to offer help when he notices the mask in your hand. Is that a Dionysian mask? You blink. You know Dionysus? My uncle used to lead a little cult for him, he says, sniffing. They had dances. He told stories. Then he vanished. Your fingers tighten slightly on the mask. What happened? You ask. The boy shrugs. The villagers said Dionysus was dangerous, that he made people weird. Said joy was a poison. They banned the gatherings, smashed the masks. My uncle went out one night and never came back. And just like that, the air shifts. The mask pulses in your hand like it remembers too much. You look at the boy. Do you want to hear a story? He blinks. Now. Yes, you say softly. Right now. And so you sit beside the crumbling shrine. The sun leans lazily westward. Cicadas start tuning up in the background. You tell him about the pirates who tried to kidnap a god and got turned into dolphins. About a forest where vines danced to flute songs and wine flowed from tree trunks. About a lion who wasn't a lion, a god who rode a chariot pulled by panthers, and a marble throne made of grapevines and wild decisions. The boy stares, eyes wide. You can't tell when he stops being afraid and starts listening. But at some point, the tears stop. And then, he asks. You smile. And then Dionysus reminded them all. Never confuse order with wisdom. Sometimes joy is the only rebellion left. He laughs, a little snort, unsure but real. That sounds dangerous. It is, you say, but also necessary. You hand him the mask. Keep it, you say. His eyes go wide. I can't. Sure you can, you say. Just don't hide behind it. He holds it like it might vanish. What if they find it? Then they'll know, you reply, that joy isn't gone. Just hiding. Waiting. He nods slowly. You walk with him back toward the village. It's small, maybe 10 homes and a few goats pretending to be dogs. As you approach, a few adults look up warily. One woman, older, rushes over and pulls the boy into her arms, sobbing. Another man eyes you with suspicion. What did you do to him? You shake your head. He just needed a story. Was it one of those stories? He asks coldly. You meet his gaze. The kind that make people remember they're alive? Yes. He starts to protest, but something flickers in his eyes. Something older than law, older than fear. He steps back. You turn to go. As you walk away, you hear soft giggling, children gathering around the boy, asking him to tell the story again. He begins with the pirates, and one girl squeals when he gets to the dolphin part. You keep walking, and you realize something. The mask in your satchel, the one you gave the boy, is still there. You pull it out. Still warm. Still humming. Still smiling. That's when it hits you. The mask is not a one-time thing. It returns. Each time you pass it on, another appears. Because it's not the object that matters, it's the act. The choice to share madness. To plant the seed of joyful chaos where someone forgot how to bloom. You pass through towns, hamlets, crossroads. In one place, you leave a mask on the doorstep of a burned theater. In another, you hand it to a tired musician playing for no one in a dusty square. Once, you catch a girl sketching vines into the dirt with her foot and leave a mask near her basket of bread. You don't say anything. She grins anyway. And wherever you go, strange things begin to happen. Wine tastes richer. Laughter lasts longer. And sometimes, just sometimes, ivy grows overnight on rooftops that used to sag under rules and silence. One town hosts a midnight play under the stars. Another celebrates a newborn baby by throwing flower petals from rooftops and singing until sunrise. And you keep walking. You feel Dionysus less and less as a presence, and more as a tuning fork vibrating in your bones. A whisper in the breeze. A chuckle in your dreams. Sometimes, at a fork in the road, you swear you hear him say, "Turn left." The baker there dances when no one's looking. And you always do. You're not a priest. You're not a prophet. You're something much worse for the people in charge. You're a reminder that stories matter, that gods can dance, that sometimes the most divine thing in the world is belly laughter and a good fig. You sleep under stars. You dream of forests. And somewhere, far away, Dionysus laughs. You wake to the distant call of a cockerel somewhere beyond the hills, its cry sharp and insistent as if reminding the world it's time to rise, whether you want to or not. The air is cool, smelling faintly of crushed thyme and something sweet, maybe honey or memories. You stretch and notice the mask resting beside your bedroll, glowing faintly in the morning light, like a quiet heartbeat you can't quite ignore. You've been on the road for days now, weaving through villages, forests, and fields that seem to hum with a new kind of magic. Not the flashy kind, no thunderbolts or wild beasts, but something softer, subtler. The kind of magic that lingers in a shared laugh or the ripple of a flute's note drifting over olive groves at sunset. Today, though, there's a sense of purpose tightening your chest like a vine slowly wrapping around a tree. You're heading toward a city, one that's said to be proud and fierce, with marble temples and laws older than the mountains themselves. A place that, according to stories you've heard in smoky taverns, doesn't have much use for gods like Dionysus, or the chaos they bring. You arrive as the sun hangs high, casting sharp shadows across wide stone streets and statues that glare down with frozen severity. The air here is heavy with order. Marching soldiers, strict merchants, citizens dressed in their best, don't mess with me, outfits. You feel the mask throb in your pocket, a quiet rebellion pressing against the fabric of the city's rules. As you walk, eyes turn. Some curious, others suspicious. You're an outsider here. Too free, too wild. You almost expect someone to challenge you to a debate on the merits of backsheet rights versus civic duty. You pass a group of children playing a game involving sticks and laughter. For a moment, you're tempted to join, but the weight of the mask calls you forward. Near the city's center, a crowd has gathered. At first, you think it's a market, but as you draw closer, you see the banners, symbols of the city's magistrates, promising order and peace. A man stands on a platform, speaking in harsh tones about discipline, tradition, and the dangers of excess. You cannot control what you do not understand, he bellows. Joy is chaos. Chaos is destruction. You glance around. Faces nod, some eagerly, others with quiet fear. You feel the mask grow warm in your palm. It's urging you, whispering of dances in moonlight, of wine-soaked celebrations that slip through the cracks of rules and edicts. You step forward, clearing your throat. The crowd turns. Joy is not the enemy, you say gently. It's the breath that keeps the world alive. Without it, even the strongest walls crumble from within. The man frowns, his voice rising. You speak nonsense. We have laws to protect us, from madness, from ruin. You hold up the mask. This mask is a reminder that beneath every law, every order, lives a heart that beats for laughter, for music, for the wild dance of life. A murmur spreads, some skeptical, some intrigued. Historians still argue whether Dionysian rites were a threat to order or a necessary release. You continue. But perhaps the real question is, can a city truly live without moments of unrestrained joy? A young woman steps forward. Her eyes sparkle, as if seeing something long hidden. I've heard stories. My grandmother spoke of festivals where even the stoic wept with laughter. Could such things still exist? You smile. They do. In pockets, in whispers, waiting to grow. Slowly, others begin to nod, and the atmosphere shifts. The man on the platform glares but doesn't interrupt. You sense a seed planted. As the crowd disperses, the woman approaches. Will you help us? Teach us how to dance again. You consider. The mask comes softly, a gentle invitation. You nod. Because the lesson Dionysus taught the pirates wasn't just about silly transformations or wild revelry. It was about remembering what it means to be human. Messy, joyful, vulnerable, alive. And maybe, just maybe, you're here to remind a city that even marble can sing. You find yourself staying in the city longer than expected. Not because the marble temples or strict magistrates fascinate you, but because the people, those cautious faces shifting from suspicion to curiosity, need something you didn't realize you carried. Permission. Permission to let go, even if just a little. You start small, gathering a handful of those willing. You organize secret evenings behind closed doors, hidden courtyards, candlelit basements, spaces thick with the scent of wild herbs and whispered laughter. You teach them the old dances, the ones that feel like falling without fear, where every step is a question and every twirl an answer. At first, their movements are stiff, unsure. They're used to walking straight lines and keeping their voices down. But slowly, the music takes hold. A lyre string trembles, a tambourine shakes, feet find rhythms long forgotten. There's a certain historical truth here. Ancient Dionysian festivals, the Bacchanalia, were wild, ecstatic, and often scandalous. The city's elders call them dangerous excesses, but you see them as moments of liberation. And of course, historians still argue whether those rites were purely religious or more social releases from the pressures of daily life. One night, as laughter spills like wine into the cool air, you notice a curious thing. The mask you carry begins to glow faintly, almost as if it's breathing. A young man, usually tight-lipped and stern, dances with abandon, his eyes shining like he's rediscovered a piece of himself. A woman who only yesterday scolded her children for noisy play joins in, her hands trembling with joy. You realize the mask isn't just an object, it's a catalyst. A spark that awakens the part of the soul that remembers to live. Word spreads quietly. Not everyone approves. Some magistrates whisper of chaos returning, of order unraveling. But the city's streets start to change, too. Walls once blank now bloom with murals of ivy and grapes, of wild-eyed faces caught mid-laughter. You walk among them, feeling the pulse of something ancient stirring beneath the stones. One afternoon, a scholar approaches you, wears a tweed jacket that somehow clashes with the sandals and toga-like robe he sports. He asks about the origins of Dionysian mystery rites, his tone cautious but intrigued. You're aware, he says, that the academic world debates whether these rites were initiations or simply excuses for drunken debauchery. You chuckle softly, feeling the familiar mix of amusement and exasperation. Well, you reply, maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Perhaps the rites were less about escaping reality and more about embracing it, fully, messily, beautifully. He nods thoughtfully, scribbling notes. You realize your role is becoming something unexpected, not just a storyteller or a traveler, but a bridge between wild myth and steady fact, between ancient frenzy and modern calm. And as twilight descends, the city hums with a new energy, the kind that only comes when you remember to dance even when no one is watching. The days stretch and blend, like the slow pouring of wine into a glass, the color deepening, the aroma growing stronger, until suddenly you realize the city no longer feels like a cage, but a dance floor. You move through streets alive with newfound joy. Shopkeepers hum as they sell figs and olives. Children chase each other, their laughter echoing against ancient stone. Even the stern magistrates occasionally pause, caught mid-stride by a stray melody or the sight of a couple spinning beneath the setting sun. It's intoxicating, this shift. You remind yourself, Dionysus never wanted chaos without meaning. His madness was a mirror, reflecting what we hide beneath our carefully built facades. One evening, as twilight paints the sky a soft purple, you're invited to a gathering unlike any you've attended before. Not in a hidden courtyard or candlelit basement, but in the city's grand amphitheater, empty now, but still pulsing with echoes of centuries past. A crowd assembles, faces both familiar and new. The mask in your pocket hums, a gentle buzz you feel more than hear. You step onto the stage, heart steady but nerves fluttering. You begin with a story, the pirates and the god, the vines and the wine, the wild dances and the lessons learned. As you speak, something shifts. The audience leans in. The air grows thick with anticipation. And then you ask them to stand. One by one, hesitant at first, they rise. You invite them to move, to dance, to laugh, to embrace the joy tucked away beneath years of restraint. The amphitheater fills with the sound of footsteps, claps, and the soft thud of feet meeting earth. Laughter bursts forth like sunlight breaking through clouds. A little girl spins, arms outstretched, eyes bright with wonder. An old man claps, tears glistening at the corners of his eyes. You look out over the crowd, feeling the pulse of life, raw, unfiltered, alive. It's a moment suspended between history and myth, between order and abandon, between fear and freedom. And you know, without a doubt, that Dionysus's lesson is alive here. Not as chaos without purpose, but as joy with meaning. As the night deepens, the city dances beneath the stars. And you, with a mask tucked close, feel the quiet certainty of belonging, of being part of a story larger than yourself, of carrying forward the wild, beautiful, necessary madness of a god who taught pirates to become dolphins and taught humanity to remember how to laugh. You wake the next morning to an unfamiliar quiet. No merchants shouting, no children's laughter, just the soft rustling of olive leaves in a gentle breeze. The city seems to be holding its breath. Word has spread about last night's gathering, and with it, unease has crept into corners where joy rarely dared to tread. You find yourself summoned by the magistrate you'd once seen as a rigid guardian of order. Now, his face is lined with worry, not anger. "You've stirred something we cannot control," he says quietly, eyes flickering with doubt. "Our people are restless, uncertain. This joy, it threatens our peace." You nod slowly. Joy is never without risk. It's a wild thing, like a lion that can protect or destroy. He sighs. We must decide if we can live with that wildness, or if it must be tamed. You see the weight of leadership pressing down on him, the same weight that made you wary of the city at first. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's influence was a blessing or a curse, you say softly. But perhaps it's neither. Perhaps it's simply a reminder that life is complex. He studies you, then nods. We will meet soon to decide our path. You leave his presence with a strange mixture of hope and uncertainty. That night, you wander through the city streets, now quieter, shadows longer. The mask hums faintly in your pocket, a steady heartbeat amid the silence. You pause before a statue of a long-forgotten hero, vines beginning to curl up its pedestal, a subtle rebellion of nature against stone. You think of the pirates turned dolphins, the vines that danced, the laughter that echoed, and you realize something profound. The lesson Dionysus taught wasn't just for those who dared to embrace madness, but for those who governed order. That the balance between chaos and control is delicate, always shifting, like the tides. You smile, knowing your journey isn't over. There will be challenges ahead. But wherever you go, the story will continue, carried in masks, in dances, in the wild, irrepressible laughter of those who choose to live fully. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. Days pass, and you watch the city navigate its uneasy dance between the old order and the new spirit you helped awaken. Some nights are filled with music and laughter, others with whispered debates behind closed doors. You notice the subtle changes, the baker who hums while kneading dough, the guards who share stories instead of commands during their watch, the children who draw grapevines in the dirt with bright, hopeful fingers. You realize Dionysus's influence isn't a sudden storm, but a slow, persistent breeze that reshapes everything in its path. One afternoon, a messenger arrives with news. Neighboring towns have caught wind of the gatherings and are curious, some even eager to join. The wild tale of the god who turned pirates into dolphins is spreading. Historians still argue whether this myth was meant to warn or to inspire, but you suspect it was both. You decide to travel again, carrying the mask, the stories, and the laughter with you. Your path leads to new horizons. Coastal villages where fishermen tell tales over bonfires, mountain hamlets where ancient trees seem to whisper secrets. Everywhere, you leave traces of Dionysus's lesson. A mask here, a story there, a dance beneath the stars. You're not sure if you're changing the world or simply reminding it of what it always was. Either way, the journey feels endless and full of promise. And as night falls, you sit beneath a sky thick with stars, the mask resting quietly beside you. You wonder where the pirates are now, those dolphins swimming free in the sea, and whether they, too, carry a bit of wild laughter in their hearts. You feel the road beneath your feet once more, the familiar mix of dust and possibilities settling into your bones. The mask, your constant companion, hums softly as if breathing alongside you, its smile a quiet encouragement. The world around you shifts, landscapes unfolding like pages in an ancient book. Olive groves give way to wildflower fields, which blur into rocky shores kissed by restless waves. You think about the stories you've told, the pirates who learned their lesson in a splash of transformation, the villagers who rediscovered joy beneath the weight of tradition, the city that dared to dance despite fear. Each tale a thread in a tapestry woven from laughter, defiance, and the tender chaos that breathes life into order. Historians still debate Dionysus's true nature. Was he a god of madness, a liberator, or simply a symbol of the human spirit's wild edge? You don't mind the questions. The answers, you realize, live in moments like these. The quickening heartbeat before a dance, the sparkle of eyes shared in a secret smile, the thrill of breaking rules to find freedom. Tonight, the air is cool, scented with wild thyme and distant salt. You lay back on the earth, the sky a velvet canopy sprinkled with stars, each one a silent witness to the dance of gods and mortals alike. The mask rests beside you, its hum fading into the quiet night. You close your eyes, feeling the pulse of the stories, the laughter, the wild lessons carried through time. And as sleep creeps in, gentle and inevitable, you carry with you a secret smile, knowing that somewhere, somehow, the pirates swim free and Dionysus laughs.